The Birth of the Creative Commons. Presented by Robin Sitton. Marilyn, the corporate trainer, needed a simple sketch of a duck to make a point in her slide presentation. Marilyn wistfully remembers a time when she could stand at the front of the room with stacking cards, and her duck metaphor worked without an image of a duck. She remembers when she might sketch a duck on flip chart paper, not that it was much of a sketch. Or she could subscribe to a clip service full of sketches on any theme and find a better sketch there. The digital age changed all of that. She remembers, too, when finding a useful image on the internet was difficult, then suddenly it was so painfully simple that it felt like she could choose from 1,000 images and everything that was shared was free. She knows now that digital sketches and photos are crafted by individuals as much as those old clip art collections were, and she should take care to find images that are licensed for use. Copyright is a fuzzy area of law for most people, but in her role as a corporate trainer, Marilyn is not most people. She has an obligation to understand copyright and a responsibility to model good practice in her work. Today, Marilyn is solving her problem the old-fashioned way. She took a photo of a rubber duck with her phone so she can move on to the next slide. Little does Marilyn know that she is now a copyright holder of a shadowy photo of a rubber duck for longer than she will likely need it. Until 1998 and the passage of the Copyright Term Extension Act, a copyright lasted for 50 years after the death of the author or creator. The idea was to give an author protection through his life and the life of the generation following. The language of the law specifically referred to his widow or her widower, and his or her children or grandchildren. Unless someone filed for an extension, or the copyright changed hands, that copyrighted work would become part of the public domain, resources available for anyone to use. Copyright-eligible material must be original, creative, and fixed in a tangible medium of expression. And in the eyes of the law, digital material is tangible. In 1990, as the internet was sprouting, a work in the public domain would mean the creator had been dead since before 1940. But there were not too many digital resources created by folks who died before 1940. The internet was open pasture, and everyone was grazing on it. This is not to say that all the live journals and hamster dances and uploaded beats were not entitled to copyright protection. The language of the law just didn't recognize them. At the same time, the World Wide Web was quickly becoming a collection of collections, a file directory of shared file directories, and an unjuried, unedited publishing bonanza. David Bollier of Commons Strategies has called it a supercommons. Through file sharing, ease of download, lack of oversight, material is easily found, modified, used, and retained with little recourse for copyright holders. The legal constraints of copyright and the open range of the internet were severely out of balance. As David Blake and David Wiley, co-founders of Degreed, described it in 2012, what the internet enabled, copyright already forbid. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California commented, "New technologies not only have extended but also have expanded the market for creative content." And here the senator was referring to videocassettes and cable television, not digital media. And the statement she was making to Congress in 1997 was in support of the Copyright Term Extension Act, or CTEA, most commonly referred to as the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension. The CTEA provided 20 more years of copyright extension to works produced before 1978, including those works that had not yet been formally produced or published. It also recognized executors, trustees, and any other named representatives as the natural inheritors of copyright on the death of an author. and included implications for modifications and derivations which, in a digital medium, were more easily managed. The act was passed through Congress unanimously. Many challengers, including digital content aggregators who had built their businesses anticipating copyright expirations, responded. Eldred et al. Versus Ashcroft is the decision that will become important for Maryland's duck dilemma. Remember Maryland? Important not for its outcome, which upheld the CTEA, but for the movement it inspired. The plaintiffs were arguing that copyright extension was fencing off the open range of that great commons that the Internet had created. They argued that Congress did not have the authority to build those fences, and that the CTEA challenged the plaintiffs' business potential by cutting off the release of public domain content, resources we were all supposed to be able to enjoy. The court, consulting Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, where Congress's powers are itemized, noted that Section 8, Clause 8, could not be more clear. The Congress shall have the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Arguing for the plaintiffs, attorney Lawrence Lessig noted, "The terms are not limited when limits are allowed to change." Plus, the new law covered derivations of copyrighted works, which Lessig argued was also unconstitutional by the language of Article 1. Sharing is good. It encourages more creation and discovery, and spreads the seeds of knowledge far and wide. One cannot trespass on open land. Forming an argument around a metaphor of trespass and real property is important here as well, as we recall what David Bollier of Commons Strategies Group defined as the characteristics of a commons. It is a social system for the long-term stewardship of resources that preserves shared values and community identity. It is a self-organized system by which communities manage resources both depletable and replenishable with minimal or no reliance on the market or state. Our collective wealth includes cultural works that must be passed on to future generations. And that collective wealth is often jeopardized by the market and the state. Lessig and his colleagues resolved to put copyright in the hands of the creator. Within the law as it stands, I can still give my permission as the rights holder. I can share my ducks with others who need ducks, and they can paint hats on the ducks and hand them back to me. How can we do that? By 2001, the global nonprofit Creative Commons is formed to ensure sharing and reuse of creativity and knowledge through the provision of free legal tools. Creative Commons developed a series of licenses that would allow content creators to set a meter on their copyright and to allow their work to become part of the collective wealth David Bollier had indicated. The author retains the copyright and receives the credit by allowing modifications or derivations that creator can then copyright and earn on those derivations, unless otherwise specified. What have they accomplished so far? Over 1 billion licensed works, including 162,293 images of ducks. Marilyn can easily find a duck she likes better by refining her search: wood duck, rubber duck, cartoon duck, duck family, and feel confident she is using an image with the expressed permission of its creator. More importantly, she can add her duck by licensing it on the spot. She chooses attribution, share alike, and by doing so, invites others to adapt her duck for their needs and add it to the collection. Licensing alone is not enough. The Creative Commons needs the strength of the community behind it, because Bollier reminds us that the Commons is a social system of stewardship. So Creative Commons Global Network supports the movement as well as the technology and licensing to encourage my North American ducks, your South American ducks, African wading birds of all kinds, and all cartoon sheriff animals to follow the same standards and practices. Network.creativecommons.org are the evangelists of the movement, serving at the regional level to coordinate the global movement, while operating separately from Creative Commons HQ. Institutional and individual memberships are available, as well as independent advocates, to support the global network strategy through regional advocacy and fundraising projects and continued education. Maryland considers joining the effort by contacting network-support@creativecommons.org to find the chapter or community closest to her. She might also hang on to her chalk.